Hello and welcome to the Fiction Hack Podcast, the show where we aim to deepen our appreciation of the modern story. I'm Colin Monroe, this is Ross Lawhead.
Hello.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Yippee-ki-yay.
Yes, this week we're talking about Die Hard. Why are we talking about Die Hard, Ross?
Well, it was brought to my attention via social media that Die Hard is 30 years old last month. So it opened on July 15th, 1988. And so it celebrated its 30th birthday. And it's, I feel like it's a kind of important movie in a lot of ways. And it's just kind of a rich topic to discuss. So I figured that we might as well just jump into it.
Yeah.
What do you think? We decided that we were both going to watch the movie, right? And we both have now?
I just finished like 10 minutes ago.
Okay. So this is a movie that I grew up with. And I remember watching it with my parents first and then, just kind of watching it over and over again growing up. How about you? Was it something that was a part of your childhood as well?
No, not at all, really. Like, I remember I'd seen most of it before, but only because, like, flicking through the channels late one night, it was on, and I saw it and thought, oh, I'll watch that. Mm-hmm. So I never sort of went out my way to watch it. I'd definitely never seen the beginning where he's on the plane and all that stuff. I have seen Die Hard 2 and Die Hard 3 and Die Hard with a Vengeance. No. Is Die Hard with a Vengeance 3?
There's actually 5 of them. Yeah.
5?
Yeah, there's 5. And maybe a 6th one coming out. But we can talk about this because it's really an interesting story.
I mean, we're focusing on the first one though, right?
Yes.
Because that's the only one I've seen recently and the only one I remember anything about.
I think it's it's the best one for sure. I think anyone would say that. And I don't know. I haven't seen the last 2, so I've only seen the first 3. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So it was interesting because, I mean, in our correspondence before starting this call, you said you've got a lot to say about this movie, and even though it's a great movie and historically quite significant, it's still kind of a B movie, And so I'm curious to know what it is that why you've got so much to say about it.
So all right. Okay, so I've had a strong love-hate relationship with this movie. I keep going back and forth on it as to whether I like it or not. And although I enjoy it because it's a really well-made movie, I'm not sure I agree with it. And I think it led to it was a good excuse for a lot of bad movies to come out. And I've been trying to get my thoughts together on this, and I've attempted to write actually blog posts in the past just about Die Hard and kind of the effect that it's had on cinema and just on, I think, like not just the American psyche, but the psyche in the West and the way we think about things. Because I think it's also a damaging movie because it's so well made and because it illustrates the things that it does. I think it's got a bad message that's wrapped up in a really attractive package. So, and I'll just jump into that by way of saying that, I mean, in a lot of ways it fetishizes violence and especially gun violence. And it struck me this last time just how repeatedly the message is driven home to us that if you have a gun, that will sort all your problems out. And looking at some of the kind of interview material and the commentaries that were on the DVD I had, the filmmakers themselves were kind of conscious of a lot of these issues. And so they would try to sidestep certain things like, guns get lost. He has to use one as a way to climb down a vent, but then he loses the gun. So they try to make it so that, the hero isn't just the person with the gun. But in the end, that's really all it is. It's saying that violence is the answer to these problems. And I think that, it's just one movie, but then you get so many copycat movies about Die Hard, and all of them saying that if you have a gun and you shoot somebody, then that's going to solve all the problems. And then you can kind of look at America's, internal and foreign policy in the last 30 years since this movie and a lot of movies like it came out. and just said, well, yeah, Americans think that guns are going to solve everything. We
Mm,
shoot Osama bin Laden, we kill Saddam Hussein. We think these are going to solve our problems, and that this will be our foreign policy, and everybody will love us if we just kill these guys. And that's not the case.
yeah.
On the one hand, it's very complex in the way it was made, and we can talk about John McTiernan. He was one of my favorite directors.
Hmm.
I say was because I'm not sure he's a director anymore, and he went to jail for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but he's done some great movies, and he is really canny and smart, not just in the way that he directs, but in the way he markets himself, or at least at that time he was.
Mm.
So his first movie, his first kind of big breakthrough was Predator
Oh,
with
right.
Arnold
Yeah.
Schwarzenegger.
Hmm.
Then Die Hard came, and then Hunt for Red October, which I think is really good. He had a couple. He had one Under the Radar, Medicine Man. Then The Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which kind
Hmm.
of sent up the entire genre that he, in a large part, he contributed to. And then Die Hard with a Vengeance. So that was the third one that he came back for.
Okay.
And then just kind of sputtered out. He also did the 13th Warrior with Antonio Banderas, which I really liked a lot. Did you ever see that one or come
No, I
across
didn't
it?
know. I did. He didn't.
Okay.
He also. Oh, you go carry on with the list. Because didn't he
No,
do?
that's
Didn't he
uh
do Thomas Crown Affair, the remake?
yeah, yeah. So he did that. It came out in the same year, but 13th Warrior kind of ended his career because it was a famous money loss. Yeah,
Oh,
it
right.
just kind of got bad test screenings, and they put a lot of money into it at that point. So they decided they had to put even more money into it. And you're talking about Michael Crichton. He wrote the book called The Eaters of the Dead, which was based on Beowulf,
Hmm.
and this was an adaptation of that book. And then they brought Michael Crichton in to try to reshoot a lot of stuff, re-edit it. And so what there is now is kind of
That
a
based on Westworld. That doesn't seem like a good idea.
well, I mean, I think he was. Yeah, I'd agree.
Just to
Although
clarify
I
for
love
those
Westworld.
people who haven't listened to previous episodes, I'm talking
Yeah,
about the original movie, not the TV series. I think the TV series is great, but if you watch the original movie, I don't think I don't. I mean, it's okay for its time, but it's really dated badly.
it is. It is.
So yeah.
Yeah, but no, that's all to say is I think Michael Crichton probably was a bad choice for that. But then also it's like how many movies are better because a second director has come in to take charge of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still happening today. Like, it doesn't matter who you get.
Yeah,
Like,
well, the
look at the
Solo
Justice
movie.
League movie. Yeah,
Yeah.
just Solo, Justice League. Ron Howard is a great director. He's tops.
Mm.
But what
Yeah, I mean,
it's
if you
kind of
get,
things you to
you
work with.
can get like two great directors to work on a movie,
Yeah,
or but it's still not going to be as good as if you just get one. That's not how it works. You've got to get one
that's not how
director
it
to
works.
make their vision. It's like, two
Yeah,
chefs making the same dish. They're just gonna fight over it, and
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah,
So
to get back to McTiernan, I mean, these were these were important movies, and even
mm,
now they're still making Predator movies.
yeah,
Hunt for Red October was the very first of the Jack Ryan movies, and for some reason I don't know why, they're still making Jack Ryan movies. Chris Hemsworth was one of them recently, wasn't he, or was it the other Chris? Ben Affleck was a Jack Ryan, and these are all based on Tom Clancy books, of course.
hmm
A really big author, and
yeah.
they
So
always
I
keep
mean,
wanting
okay,
to.
so he's not perfect. He's had some bad movies, but he's made some really great ones in the
Yeah,
past as
I'd
well.
say
So
yeah. In the whole grand scheme of things, I think he's had more hits than misses
yeah,
generally. And
I mean,
the way
he
it'll,
must have decided to semi-retire. They're not going to just not let him make any more movies because one of his movies was bad. Surely.
you don't know then about the felony charges. So he spent some
No, I
time in
don't. Tell me about
jail.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he spent some time in jail because he hired a private investigator um, to wiretap one of his writers for the movie Rollerball, and apparently, I see. I okay. So I've gotten bits and pieces of this, and we've got some information on Wikipedia, which is probably the most reliable, but still, it seems a bit sketchy. And I read
Yeah, I
an
don't want any
article with him,
libel
and
cases against the
no,
podcast.
no,
So
no.
so
I
this
read
is
an
all
article
just
with him. This is all. This is not our information. We're just passing it on and telling people where to find it. So
yeah.
there was an article in Empire, I think, or Total Film, with him, where he was basically from prison or house arrest or something, and he was basically, yeah, well, yeah, there's some dodgy dealings with some. Uh, with some tax stuff, and it was a company I owned, and my name was on the papers, but it was someone else's fault, and I'm the one who went to jail for it.
Hmm.
And I remember thinking at the time that that's not really how that works. If you have a trial, it's all about finding the person who's actually responsible for it. But then looking at the Wikipedia website, it's like there's nothing about this kind of stuff that he was talking about. The impression he gave. So he, yeah, he declared bankruptcy in 2013, and I think Hollywood has just kind of walked away from him,
Yeah.
even though he was this big influential guy in the
Right.
mid to late 80s.
So it's not just one flop. It's
Not one flop, no.
other factors have played a part.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, have you seen Rollerball? This is one I keep hearing
No.
about, but I never. Oh, okay. Wait, this is the Rollerball is the remake. Okay, so I remember there was a remake. This looks awful. Yeah, so it looks like he just kind of lost the plot in a lot of ways, which is a shame because if you do listen to the commentary on Predator and Die Hard, those are the only two I've listened to. I'd love to hear the commentary for Hunt for October if it exists. But he is really intelligent, and he's
Hmm.
got a different way of looking at. He was the first person to talk about movies in terms of music, like symphonic music, and it just kind of he said that he would watch movies without the sound, and
Hmm.
see if he could tell what was going on as just kind of a way to
Yeah.
judge how well the storytelling is taking place. And I was hearing that at university studying screenplay writing, and it was a real challenge for someone who actually with a novelist background, who it's all about the words.
Yeah. It's
Well,
yeah. I
can you write a
can.
movie without the words and
I
all
remember
that?
doing like screenwriting when I was at university and things, and it's so easy to just think too much about the dialogue,
Hmm.
about what's being said, and not think about, not actually visualize it, as and visualize the other techniques of the storytelling. And also, I remember watching a movie when I was in Thailand called, I think it's called, I can't remember. It's got that guy Tony Jaa, who's like a
Hmm.
kung fu guy.
Yeah.
And it's a movie about. See, I don't even know what it's called because it was in Thai, and
Uh-huh.
um, so yeah, Tony Jaa is this guy, and he was like when he was a kid, lived in this village, and he was like had this like pet elephant, or it was a wild elephant that he'd become friends with, and then some people come
Hmm.
along and take it away to like eat it in a restaurant for endangered species that's like black market restaurant thing,
Hmm.
and and it was really great because I remember thinking I don't have a clue what these guys are saying, but I know exactly what's going on in the story,
Hmm.
and I thought it was really great filmmaking.
Yeah.
Um,
It is, and it's not. It's of course it's the acting as well. It's the
yeah.
editing. It's everything that contributes to that. And yeah, I didn't listen this time around. Rewatching Die Hard, I they had a feature which was kind of commentary subtitles that were just taken from the screenwriter and the editor and the director, and the things would just pop up as sort of subtitles that would tell you about the what you were seeing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And just the kind of what we call now blocking, what they call mise en scène in the at university, but just
Yeah.
the way things appear on the screen was something I didn't really. I consider myself a visual person. Like I like art. I like to make art and comic books and stuff. But there was a whole lot of stuff that was happening which I was just unaware of about which side of the frame Bruce Willis is on, how he is often separated a lot from the other people just by the environment, and uh, it all adds to a really great effect and just
Yeah.
shows how much thought and mastery really went in.
That when you
It's
watch it,
one
it's
thing to
just
do it.
subconscious, just
Yeah,
completely subconscious.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, it's one thing to do it; it's the other thing to actually come up with this stuff.
Yeah.
And he knows all the tricks. And I think that's why people just keep pointing to Die Hard as and see. I had thought that Die Hard was the first of all of these kind of over the top action movies, but it wasn't. It was just the best.
Mm-hmm.
Not even in their heyday, but Rambo came out before this one. So the first Rambo movie called First Blood came out before this. But then, and also Commando, which again is
Mm-hmm.
one I keep hearing about. I haven't seen it.
Because
It's
Commando was
with
before Predator, right? They're both Schwarzenegger movies.
they are
Is
both
that right?
Schwarzenegger. I think you might be right. Let's see. Predator was 87. I think was Commando 88.
Maybe.
But this was going to be a commando a movie. This is going to have Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, reprising his role.
What, Die Hard?
Die Hard, yeah,
Yeah, I could. Okay, right. I
which you
remember
can
there
probably
was actually a
see. Yeah,
reference to that. There's actually a reference to
is there?
Schwarzenegger in the movie. Yeah, because I just watched it. I remember
Mm-hmm.
thinking this movie could have been quite good with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Um, yeah, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Willis makes some reference to Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, again, like I say, this wasn't the first, but it kind of was the biggest one, and I think because of a lot of the elements. Um, like you have Bruce Willis being very vulnerable. He is in this movie very realistic kind of hero,
Hmm.
and to the extent where a lot of people thought he was probably going to die at the end,
Yeah,
hard, but he was still going to die.
right.
Uh,
Because of the title.
because of the title, exactly, and just because of his performance as well, which is really good. He gives a really solid performance, and I mean he's kind of famous recently for just phoning in a lot of performances, but this one you can tell he did a lot of research and gave it his all.
Mm.
But because of all these things and because of the artistry, I think this was slightly a crossover hit because it was a big success, which is why they're still talking about making them. And it's one that, for instance, my mom watched along with us. Because of those elements, it didn't appeal to just kind of
Yeah.
you know
I mean,
macho
there's been
or
so
wannabe
many
macho
not
guys.
remakes, but almost people kind of remakes. There's that like
Yeah.
movie right now with Dwayne Johnson, which seems like kind of the same thing, set in a skyscraper.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Isn't
yeah. I think
is that
I've
what
heard
it's
people
called?
call it
Skyscraper or something? Yeah,
one-legged Die Hard. I
yeah,
think so.
yeah.
And
Which
but we
but
yeah,
also
go
just
on.
the premise of a hostage situation in a compact environment
Hmm.
has been done a lot. There was like Air Force One,
Hmm.
um, tons of them.
Yeah, for sure. And this one, I think, yeah, this one basically takes place in real time. Once he gets into the building, it all unfolds right there, and it just moves so smoothly. And
Yeah, I definitely got that sense. I don't think it does, but it feels like it does.
uh
I guess, but yeah,
I,
yeah, you're right, right.
I think you can make it. I think there's probably a few instances where we cut to him
Because it's
later
only
on, and
two
he's
hours,
picking.
and something like that would take more than 2 hours in reality when you think of
I,
everything that happens.
yeah, yeah,
But you're right.
but
So I
there's not
think
going to be a big
given
jump
everything
anyway.
that happens, I don't think it could have happened in 2 hours. But it does have that feel.
Yeah, it has that feel for
Yeah.
sure.
So hang on, before you go any further, what about
Hmm.
Bruce Willis? How famous was he at that point?
So he was in a movie. Sorry, not a movie. He was in a TV show called Moonlighting, and it was kind of just a cop drama. I've never seen it, but growing up,
Mm.
I always heard people talking about it, and this was his kind of breakout role. And
Yeah.
they famous. I think it was like 5 million.
Oh
They
yeah.
spent on him,
And that was a
which
record at the
was
time.
yeah. So it was unusual at the time, and I think it did make some headlines that this guy plucked from TV stardom to headline an action movie, a well publicized one. This is going to be their big kind of action movie for the summer. It and they offered this role to a lot of people also who turned it down. A lot of kind of the established people. I think Richard Gere was in that list. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Yeah.
Stallone apparently, and although I mean this is where things get a little fuzzy because I mean the movie that we now think of as Die Hard wasn't didn't start out as Die Hard. In fact, none of the movies except for one Die Hard movie actually started out as Die Hard with the name John McClane in the first draft of the script. So this was based on a book that was called, I think, Nothing Lasts Forever.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Thorpe wrote that book. See, I had that up here a little while ago. And that was actually a sequel to another book called The Detective. Now, The Detective was made into a movie with Frank Sinatra, which I didn't know about before this, but
Okay.
apparently it was. And apparently Bruce Willis was an extra in that. He's
Okay.
just kind of walking by in the background. So the book was written as a sequel to The Detective, and uh, then they were going to make this movie as a sequel to
So
the
when you say
detective
Sinatra, and
movie.
I think you must be talking about like the 50s or something, or
I think it
not?
was the
Maybe not.
70s. So yeah,
Right.
he was getting up in there, and he hadn't he hadn't made money for people for a while, but he was still an actor. He still
Hmm.
was connected up the wazoo in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know. I guess you could find this movie somewhere, but I don't really need to see
So
it. But
the character that
the
became John McClane was played by Frank Sinatra in that
in the
movie, in
detective,
the
yeah.
detective. Yeah. So
And so then
was
they
that like an action movie?
no, it was just kind of a mystery thriller kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and then Roderick Thorpe, this author, you've got a book, they made a movie out of it, so you write a sequel, of course, and it's called Nothing
Hmm.
Lasts Forever. It's about the same character who's retired now, who goes to see his daughter in California, who works in this oil company, high rise, and
Yeah.
then that gets taken over by terrorists, which is obviously the premise for Die
Right.
Hard. Now they changed the character's name, and it is a
Hmm.
different character because that movie already exists. I think you have to say it's a different character because it's
Yeah.
played by a different actor, it's a different name, all that kind of stuff. Even though they've taken the same plot, and then that became Die Hard. But that was after they tried to work it for Schwarzenegger to be a sequel to Commando. But because he
Hmm.
pulled out of it, then they couldn't use that character again. They came with a new character, and then
Right.
Die Hard was a huge success,
So they had
of
to keep the
course.
same bare bones of a structure of a story, but while
Mhm.
changing the main character
Yeah,
to a
because it
different.
works.
Right.
The
Yeah.
setup works, and they had invested a lot in it already, and it makes sense. It's a small change.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but if you've got a successful movie, of course you want a sequel to the movie, and so instead of hiring someone, well, just write a uh, new script for this new character for Die Hard 2. They found another script that had already been written pretty much,
Hmm.
and changed the names on it to John McClane. So
Hmm.
this was actually a book called 58 Minutes, which takes place in an airport. And this is like it's Die Hard in an airport. So Die Hard 2, if you've seen it, if you remember,
Yeah.
it's not that bad, but it takes place. Bruce Willis is waiting for his wife at the airport, and then there's a terrorist situation
I remember watching it and
in the
thinking it
airport.
was nowhere near as good as the original.
Probably not. I think,
Um.
I mean, from the Die Hard movies, I think this is probably my third favorite of the ones I've seen,
Hmm.
which is three. But it still has that kind of. Bruce Willis hasn't yet lost his kind of everyman appeal yet. He's not
Hmm.
pumped up. He's not completely slick with sweat and grease and all that kind of thing. At least at the beginning, it still has a kind of sense of realism to it. But again, it didn't start out as Die Hard. It started out as this book called 58 Minutes that was then adapted to a script, which they then changed into Die Hard because the premise lent itself to that.
Yeah.
Then we get to Die Hard 3, and again, this was a script. Let's see here, that was going to be written. Oh yeah, Simon Says was what it was called, and it was going to be for Brandon Lee. I think before he died, this is the son of
Hmm.
Bruce Lee.
Hmm.
They're going to build up to be an action star, um, and he did die. Apparently, Warner Brothers bought the script because scripts get this kind of they get the heat. Everybody talks about this script, and they rewrote it as a Lethal Weapon sequel. But then things started to flounder. Probably producers were moved around and stuff, and so it went into what's called turnaround. And then Fox bought the script and rewrote it as Die Hard. And you can kind of see how it would kind of work a little bit. You've got the white action hero, the black action hero. Well, that's Lethal
Hmm.
Weapon. Let's just keep
Yeah.
that. But then they turned it into a different sort of buddy movie for Die Hard 3, which again I remember seeing. I remember thinking it wasn't great, but it still kind of worked. Uh, Mostly because the performances were so solid. Not just Bruce Willis and Samuel Jackson, but had Jeremy Irons, who was a pretty good follow for Alan Rickman.
Hmm.
If you're going
Oh yeah.
to
Yeah.
get someone to follow that act.
Hmm.
Um, and okay, so they did write a script for Die Hard 3, which took place on a boat. Um,
Okay.
and that was then turned into Speed 2, Cruise
Right.
Control.
Okay.
So it's a pretty long and winding history. And then we get to the fourth one. This was Die Hard 4 was originally a script that was based on a magazine article about how the United States could be vulnerable to sort of internet warfare, internet terrorism.
Hmm.
The magazine article was called Farewell to Arms. It was turned into a script called ww3.com, and then they turned it into Live Free or Die Hard or whatever they
Right.
decided to
Yeah.
call that one. Um, and then we get to the fifth one, which is A Good Day to Die Hard, um,
Oh yeah.
which has
So
got
hang on, Die Hard
Jai
with a
Courtney
Vengeance.
in
That
it.
was Die Hard 3, right?
That was
And
Die Hard
then
3.
and
Yeah.
then Die Hard 4 was Die. That was Live Free Die Hard.
Live Free or Die Hard. It was almost, I think it was called Die Hard 4.0 in
Hmm.
Britain or
Okay.
Europe, something like that. And then it was A Good Day to Die Hard was 2013. That was the fifth one, with Bruce Willis and Jai Courtney playing his son. And I don't even know anyone who went to see this. They were talking about a sixth one, but I don't know how well this did. But I remember seeing the trailers and being like, he'll, John McClane riding a motorcycle off of a roof and throwing it into a helicopter and jumping off and all that kind of thing. It's like, this is superhero kind of stuff, and that's not
Yeah, yeah.
the appeal of the
I
original Die
did
Hard.
see Live Free Die Hard, and it seemed to have become a parody of itself. It got to
Right?
that
Yeah.
point where, I mean, even the first one, it's got some ridiculous moments, and then I guess the whole and it defined the genre, and the genre kept pushing itself into more and more, ridiculous action,
Yeah.
and then I felt like it got to the point where it became a parody of itself.
And it works for the first one. And I think
Yeah, yeah,
it's
because
just
it
kind of
was
how it was all set up. Like, there is unbelievable stunts like him, tying the fire
a
hose
hose
around his
pipe. Yeah,
waist and all that kind of stuff. That's probably the biggest over the top stunt in the picture. But the way it's played is not like I've got a plan. This is going to work. Trust me. I've got everything under control. It's like he's doing
no,
all this stuff, saying crap, 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 crap. I
I
hope I
can't
don't
believe I'm
die. I
doing
hope I
this.
don't die. I
Yeah,
hope I don't
yeah,
die. Because he's got no other option. This
yeah.
isn't his master plan. And again, if I do encourage people to listen to the commentary because McTiernan he pointed out the difference between a protagonist and an antagonist. And this is going back to classical drama. These are Greek terms that were used in Greek theater back in ancient Greece. And we called the hero so many times a protagonist. We just switched those two words out. Whereas that's not what protagonist means. The protagonist is the person who sets events in motion. He is the force that is proactive. So in Die Hard, it is actually Hans Gruber who's the protagonist because he comes into this building. He's got a plan. He starts events off, and
Hmm.
then you've got this the hero as
He's
the
just
antagonist
yeah,
who's reacting to all of
yeah.
this.
Okay,
So
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so all of Bruce Willis's actions right up until probably the last 20 minutes are reactive, and a lot of times you see him running away from these guys.
Hmm.
He's not trying to go in and kill these guys right
Yeah,
off the
at the
bat.
beginning, what's really clear is that he's a cop and he's not. He's trying. He doesn't want to kill anyone. It's
Hmm.
always a last resort.
Yeah,
He ends up killing pretty much everyone,
he
but
does. Yeah.
he also ends up. There's also a lot of cases where he could have killed people and he didn't.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, even the
so
first kill is by accident.
yeah,
His first
falling
kill.
down the stairs. Yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
he gets the gun, points at his head,
Hmm.
and then ends up killing the guy anyway by falling down the stairs
Yeah.
with him in a headlock. And I was thinking, why didn't you just shoot him in the first place?
That's a bit
But
contrived. Yeah.
yeah,
But if you watch any action movie in the 90s, you were going to see a lot of these tropes. Although I say the movie repeatedly tells you that guns are the answer to all the problems, and that's true.
unless you
The
want to
movie
have a really cool
makers,
fight scene.
well, yeah, I mean, exactly. Well, I
Like
mean,
it's
the
like
movie
in
makers
Team
go through
America.
so much.
Well, whether it's like, you want to make this interesting, and they're like, okay, and they throw their guns down.
And they do a incredible martial arts sequence.
Yeah.
Um, but they go out of their way to try and make it look like the hero doesn't want to kill people. And I
Mm.
remember there's some Martin Lawrence movie But there's okay, wait. There's lots of Martin Lawrence movies which are kind of like this. I think it was Blue Streak. I think my brother made me watch that for some reason. And it's all about kind of, well, I'll kill you, but only because you're pointing a gun at my girlfriend, or because you've jumped up when I thought you were dead and you surprised me, and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And that's what happens with the character of um, Carl. Yeah, remember? And there's this is the part which I think is the kind of most insidious, which is you've got the cop down on the ground, Al Powell, who's talking to John McClane while the movie's taking place, and they get to chatting and they talk about, well, what is it, Al? Why are you in a car just kind of behind a
Hmm.
desk?
Hmm.
Which is what you've got flat feet. What are you doing behind a desk? Which I think is a weird thing to say because
He wasn't behind a
he's
desk.
not behind a desk as far as we
He wasn't
know.
behind a desk in the
This
whole
is what he
movie.
does. Is he just
Yeah.
drives around all night. Um, but
But there's a bit
then
of
he
exposition
says,
there, yeah, about
yeah.
him and the story about where he had a incident where he accidentally shot a kid. We don't really
Hmm.
know if the kid died or lived or anything, but anyway, ever since that
Hmm.
moment, he's really struggled to pull a gun on anyone. And then at the end, he one of the terrorists, I think, has sort of disguised himself as a hostage and is coming out. But it's the terrorist whose brother got killed by John McClane, and then from that moment he was like on a mission to kill John McClane himself, and
Hmm.
he like jumps out from behind this like raincoat that he's hiding under with a machine gun and starts was about to shoot, and then you just see this gun like shot from below,
Yeah.
and it shoots him, and he dies, and you don't see who's holding the gun, but it's that cop who said he would never pull a gun on anyone ever again, or who'd really struggled to. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's really great
But
characters in
yeah,
the
okay,
movie as
but that
well.
moment, I want to go back to that moment as
Yeah, go
well
back to the moment. Yeah.
because that uh, Al firing that gun is got to be hands down the loudest noise in the movie. Probably just
Mm,
underneath the C4 blowing up underneath the building. But that gun, and it spits out these large sparks, go boom, 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 louder than
yeah.
that gun could possibly be. And then, yeah, you're absolutely right. It cuts to Carl, blood splurting out of him, falling down again, and then, yeah, you have a kind of cross focus from the gun to the face of the person who's holding it, and it's Al, and the music just swells, and
Yeah.
just in his face, it's like he's been healed. Like the firing of the gun isn't just a cathartic event; it's a healing event. And now
Mm,
he's a full person because he's able to kill again.
mm,
And I think that's a really weird moment to put in that movie. Just because it is a contrivance. You could take that
yeah.
conversation out. You could
Yeah.
take that character development out. We wouldn't care. We would still love
And
just the
it's like, so what have we got now? He can go away and kill another kid.
exactly, yeah. Now I can go and shoot all sorts of people in New York. Not
Yeah.
just children. And it's I don't know why that's in there, except that I do know in from the Predator commentary that the studios, or the Fox studio, kept pushing McTiernan to put more and more gun violence into his movies. And with Predator, there's that scene where they're just unloading guns into the jungle, because
Mm,
they think something's there, they can't see it. It's just come and killed somebody, and so they just start shooting up the jungle. And Jesse Ventura's got that big helicopter minigun, and
yeah.
then everybody else arrives. They see this guy shooting into the jungle, so they just start shooting into the jungle as well. They don't ask any questions. But that was apparently a day where the producers were coming to the set to see how things were going on for this new guy. This is his first studio movie, and they kept asking him to put all this violence in. And he said, "Well, okay, I'm going to invite them on the day where we just start shooting every gun that we've got." And so they just watched a day of shooting, firing guns, no acting, no blocking, nothing, just firing guns. And the producers went, "Okay, great, looks like this is going well," and then they just left. So I do wonder if something like that is some kind of top
Something like
down
that happened. He
edict,
needed he
yeah,
needed a scene to shoot on the day the producers were coming to visit.
something like that, yeah. Or they're just saying, what, there's a lot of killing but not enough killing, can we just or something like the ending needs another surprise. We need a surprise ending, and so they put this in as a way to justify it, and then made it poetic, which I think is even worse. They made it actually
Mm,
mean something in a way. So uh, yeah, although I do have problems with it, like I don't, I'm not quick to assign blame to who those problems are with the screenwriter or the director or something, because yeah, this is a time where there were a lot of violent action movies, and they the producers pay a lot of money for people to make these movies, and so you have a career in making movies, and you want to do well.
Hmm.
If you don't have any scruples about this kind of thing, then yeah, you're gonna do the best you can. So this is why I'm saying I got a love hate relationship with this movie, is that I admire it so much on artistic levels, and from
Hmm.
even from writing standpoints and all sorts of from viewpoints. But on the other hand, I do feel like it really kind of set things off on a bad track, and
Hmm.
it's not necessarily the people who are involved in it, but it is as well. So I keep going back and forth.
But it's also kind of a product of its time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but then another thing that
yeah.
struck me was just the really great characters, and that's
Hmm.
part of that and that cop was one of them, and the fact that he had this backstory, I thought in that sense it was quite good
Yeah.
from a writing point of view, that he had this interesting storyline that then came into play at the end. But there was a lot of other really great characters as well. That like the limo driver and
Hmm.
the wife's like boyfriend, although he was a jerk, but he was still kind of they'd still thought about the character, and
Wait, the wife's
every
boyfriend. Who's the
yeah,
wife's
well, not
boyfriend?
boyfriend, but like yeah, there was like the guy
Oh, the sleazy Ellis guy.
yeah, that's him, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And yeah,
And
that's
every
all in the script. And
almost every one of the terrorists as well is
Mhm.
has got their own persona. That none of them are like henchmen. You know what I
Right,
mean?
exactly.
None of them are
And
like
even well,
yeah,
there are a couple that are just henchmen, but you can tell that they've gone out of their way to try to make them feel more human. Like
yeah.
there's that one guy,
It's like a
like
Chinese guy one.
I love that guy.
Yeah,
Like, and they gave him that great moment, where he's he's down in the lobby, and he's got his gun trained to shoot police guys when they come in, but he's behind this kind of confectionery stand,
yeah,
and
yeah.
his eyes just keep kind of going down,
And then he
and then you
tries to
see him
steal a
kind of
Hershey
look
bar, right?
around, and then it cuts away, and the next time you see him, then he's got a candy bar in his teeth, and
Hmm.
yeah, they didn't need to do that, and no other movie after that really
Exactly,
did
and
that.
that's what I mean. So like they
Yeah.
put those scenes in because for that all they do is enrich the characters, and that's what makes it
Hmm.
a good. That's what makes it so good
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, if you look again at the commentary track, just the subtitle commentary track, they have a lot from the writer Stephen D'Souza, and yeah, he knew, he was conscious about all of that stuff,
Hmm.
about putting in these scenes to try to anchor these moments at the end, with
Yeah.
the gun moment and stuff. And I've just looked up some of the other movies that he's made. There's a lot of hits and misses on this list. Um, Apparently, he was one of my favorite story comes from the Die Hard commentary about him, is that he was trying to move more into directing, not just kind of writing and then producing. And so it was getting into the 90s, and the whole Die Hard, and sort of action movie wave had kind of crested and was kind of falling again. And they said, they had this project for him. I don't know what project it was, but they said, "You'll love it. This is just perfect for you. It's Die Hard, but in a building."
Okay.
Which
Hmm.
just shows you how divorced from reality some of these Hollywood producers get. It's just like Die Hard was in a building. That was the whole
That was the
point
whole
of
point.
Die
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
No. So really, like what struck me because I'd seen it before, but not really seen the beginning because I'd sort of cycled through the channels and it was on. So in the beginning, the way they're setting it up with the John McClane characters, like he's coming from New York where he's a cop, and he comes to this Christmas party, and he's dressed like he's not dressed like these corporate guys are all in nice suits and everything. He's dressed a bit scruffy, and they're like all looking down on him as if he's just he's just a cop, and these guys are all like earning millions, and
Hmm.
so and then and this is where the Ellis character is really it epitomizes that, and his wife has sort of transitioned from being you know from that class from John McClane's class, and she's sort of transitioned herself up and left him, and he's kind of like now trying. I guess he's still not even decided if he's trying to get his wife back or not, because really he's just going for Christmas to see the kids. I
Yeah.
think you know, because he's at the beginning of the movie, he's looking at lots of other women and stuff. He never actually, you know, women passing by and stuff. Do you remember any of this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
surprising how
and
often they're able to work in kind of
yeah, but
naked
there's a,
women.
so yeah, but there's a really good moment when he first meets his wife again because he goes to his office with the CEO guy, and then they send for the wife to go to let her know he's arrived, and the Ellis guy's there, and she comes in and he says, show her the watch we got, show him the watch we got you, and it's like a Rolex watch. It's really expensive, and that's kind of like a symbol of the kind of high life business life that she's gone into, away to get away to, and left him for. And then there's that moment at the end where she's like dangling off the edge of the building, and John
Yeah.
McClane's holding on to her, and Hans is like, I don't know, holding onto her leg, and then like oh no, yeah, he's holding onto one arm, and Hans is holding onto the other or something, but he's
No,
holding onto,
almost.
yeah,
He's
and
holding onto her wrist.
yeah, by the watch, and the
By the
watch is
watch, yeah.
the watch is like helping him grip. So then like, yeah, then John McClane unbuckles the watch and makes Hans fall, and then it's like got the double significance of like her letting go of
Yeah.
that high life.
That's really good.
You know.
I hadn't actually picked up on that. That's really clever. Yeah.
It really made me think about the our episode on Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
Because
That's
it's like,
right, yeah.
Because they really made a point to mention the Rolex
Everything
watch
comes back round.
earlier on.
There was
Yeah.
supposed to be more about watches in it, apparently. Like one of the first things you see when the terrorists come off is that they all synchronize their watches to the same time, which you would do in a situation like that, and they all have exactly the same watch. And then that was supposed to be given as the reason as to why John McClane knew that Hans Gruber wasn't actually Bill Clay, but he was a terrorist because he had the same watch as the other terrorists that he's been going through this place and killing. And actually, if you look back, there's no explanation as to why John gives who he thinks is Bill Clay an unloaded gun.
But I just assumed that he did that as a way to check whether he was one of the terrorists or not. So he gave him a loaded gun after making it look like he's loading it and checking that it is loaded to see if he would shoot him.
Yeah.
As a way
or
of
he's
knowing,
a cop and he's got that sense. He just knows maybe, or he can see through that accent.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, I genuinely thought
It works.
that was a clever.
Yeah.
It was a clever way.
Yeah.
I thought they were making him seem really smart by tricking Hans into telling him that he was the terrorist by pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
But it wasn't loaded.
Yeah.
But
No,
anyway.
yeah, I think it absolutely works. But yeah, I mean, actually going back to what you're saying about the actual character and how he's portrayed in this movie of John McClane, he is kind of stripped down and he's barefoot through the entire movie, and it's very kind of they do say this in the movie, it's a very primal kind of thing. So it's like he is just a man against this system. It's not just the terrorists, but it is this kind of corporate environment as well, which he doesn't fit into. Although they do give him a lot of guns, I will say that. So he isn't just one single person. But then, you also look at, how the government is portrayed also. You've got the FBI guys coming in, and they're these arrogant idiots. They just think everything's, a lot of fun, and hey, we're gonna kill a lot of people. We're gonna let things blow up, and
the higher the ranking police officer, the more dumb they are.
Exactly.
Right up to the FBI.
And you get that in a lot of movies, and even something like The Lethal Weapon, where it is about the police officers. It's not the It's the system is out of order. It's not the individual guys. It's the chiefs. It's the supervisors who are.
There's a great moment with the helicopters, because the helicopter. It was a double cross where they put a load of bombs on the roof and so they then get the helicopters to come, and the FBI are on the helicopters, and the bombs go off and like take out the helicopters, and the chief of the police is like, oh, they're going to have to send in some more FBI guys, as if they're like just a blatant disregard for human life.
Yeah, well, and which is what they had as well. It's like, we'll lose about 20% of the hostages. I can live with that. And what about John McClane? Well, who cares about them? So the government people are just kind of interchangeable idiots, which again, it makes sense if you have a certain political point of view, which again is kind of really prevalent in the United States right now about what government is and how government treats you. And it's kind of like, well, where do people get these ideas about, what government is? And I think I don't think all of it, but I think a lot of it does come from movies. And I think, this is where there is a responsibility to portray things accurately. And, I don't know, maybe it's just that, I have a different point of view to the filmmakers, which I'm sure they think is probably valid. But I wonder if, it was their goal to portray, the role of government in these situations accurately, or if they were just doing it kind of for laughs and a bit of action and explosions and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. So that's Die Hard.
that's Die Hard.
30 years old this month or last month.
Yep.
Um,
So
yeah.
we'll talk about Die Hard 2 next week.
Yeah. Well, how many more? Well, in a couple of years, I guess we'll have to do the
Yeah.
Die Hard 2 anniversary.
That's right. Yeah.
Are you? What else have you been up to in the last since I last talked to you?
I've been moving apartments
Oh, yeah.
and looking after the little kid. But yeah, viewing wise, I haven't been doing much reading, I have to say. But viewing wise, I've been watching this show on Netflix called Dark, Dark, and
Mm-hmm.
it was made for Netflix, but German Netflix apparently, because everybody's German in it. They speak German, but it's been dubbed over. And it's kind of interesting. I'm only a few episodes in, but it's like Stranger Things as if it were made by the Broadchurch people. So it's kind of grim and gritty, and there's some sort of complex thing going on in this community. But then there's also this kind of strange, kind of retro 80s feel when people are getting kind of sucked back into time or sucked forward in time. You're not really sure about it. So I don't know if this is just a kind of one-off series or if it continues. But it came out last year. It's called Dark, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. How about you? What are you up to?
To be honest, I haven't done very much. I'm still sort of slowly working my way through Westworld.
So so there's a full season, full American season. How long are the episodes? Are they an hour or 40?
Yeah,
Or
like an hour or yeah, I think they're an hour. Yeah,
okay, cool.
so it's pretty long, But
Yeah.
then so it gets into a lot of the like corporate side of the thing. So you got the guests, the hosts, and the host malfunctioning, and then you got the creator guy. But then you've also got the corporate. Well, then you got the behind the scenes people running it on different levels. But then you've also got right up to the corporate people, and then talk of like the shareholders and the board who you don't or who we haven't seen much of yet.
Okay.
So yeah.
So is it
But
the
anyway.
same premise? I don't want to allow spoilers, but like, is it the same premise as the movie where things are obviously going haywire, or is it kind of left open to speculation about how much is actually going wrong in this world?
Well, it depends. When you say wrong, you mean not intended?
Right, exactly. Yeah, not
Well,
by
then
design.
then it depends on who, because maybe
Okay,
someone intended it,
right.
maybe not, and then
Okay,
there's hints at maybe some interference from outside, but then maybe that's the board,
right. Okay.
or maybe it's the John character, the creator guy, the Anthony Hopkins character.
Uh-huh.
Then there's talk of his like original partner who supposedly died, but then maybe he didn't. So
Okay.
I don't know. These are all the things that are up in the air. Probably people who are listening who have seen it, who are all the way to the end of the season, will all this
Yeah,
will become clear, or a lot of it. But yeah, there's so many
that's
so many
cool.
different
No, I like
levels.
that. I've got to find a way to watch this somehow.
Yeah. Whereas the original movie, the Michael Crichton movie, is just
Mhm.
one character. Well, the whole park falls apart, but then they just focus on the one character, really, the one
Yeah.
host, and he's just like one-dimensionally wants to kill that one guy, and that guy just keeps running away, and that's pretty much the whole movie.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's an hour and a half, right? So it's the length of one and a half of these episodes. So
Yeah,
you can't really
yeah, but
develop a
they
lot
could
of
have done
themes.
more. They definitely could have kept a lot more of that in there.
See, I gotta watch both of these now. I gotta go back because I remember it being good, sort of enjoying it. Not like I've got to run out and buy this so I can keep watching it, but it's like, yeah, that's a fun
It's
movie.
a kind of good yeah, it's a fun B movie that you'd maybe if it was on at 1 o'clock in the morning and you couldn't sleep, you'd watch it.
I think that's when I did watch it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Okay.
Hey, do we have any letters or anything?
So yeah, I did get a message from
Yeah.
a friend of mine called Ben.
Uh-huh.
He's a big Star Trek fan, and he was saying that what we were saying about the Enterprise A, Enterprise B was wrong. So it's like here's what he says. So the Enterprise was the original series. Then Enterprise A was the original series films after Khan, because in the original movie they blew up the first one.
I remember that happening. Okay, so wait. Okay, so the one that blew up was just the Enterprise 1701. That was it. NCC 1701.
Yeah. And then Enterprise B was the one that they had in Generations, not the Next Generation crew, but remember there was like a new captain joining.
Yes.
And then Enterprise C was featured in the Next Gen. I think it got blew up by the Romulans. I'm reading his message here.
Wasn't that like a flashback?
Apparently.
I think it was a flashback episode,
Maybe,
or like one of those time warp episodes. Because the D is definitely the one from Next Generation.
D is the one from Next Generation in the TV series. And then, what was the one that they had? Oh yeah, then that was the one that get destroyed in Generations, crashed into the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And then Enterprise 3 was First Contact onwards. But so it goes
Enterprise
A, B,
3.
C, D, 3, apparently. This is what his message says.
That's ridiculous. That seems like a bad policy.
Yeah. Well, it's like Tesla. They got the Model S, the Model X, and then the Model 3. But the Model 3 was supposed to be called the E, and then it would be sex. Yeah. And then now they're doing the Y. Anyway, it's a different...
Well, there was Xbox
That's
as
a different
well.
podcast.
There was the Xbox, Xbox 360,
and then Xbox One.
Xbox 3. All right. Yeah. I mean, I guess there's fads for these things.
I mean, it would get boring if you just followed numerically, right? And then he goes, so I said to him, did he look this up? And he was like, no, he just knows it off the top of his head because he used to be really into it. He used to make like Play-Doh models of it. And before the internet, he used to like make files with all the information and stuff. So he's even more hardcore than I am. If we do another episode, maybe we should get him on it.
Oh man, fandom before the internet. That's something else entirely.
So, if you are listening and you have a comment on what we've said, then as ever, get in touch with the hashtag FictionHack. Hashtag FictionHack.
Hashtag FictionHack. That'll do it.
And
you can follow you on Twitter at Colin_Munro, spelled MUNRO, the correct way.
Yep. And if you want to follow you, they can follow at Ross Lawhead. And they should also check out your amazing website, rosslawhead.com/blog.
Yep.
And obviously our own website, fictionhack.com with a hyphen.
Fiction-hack.com. Yep. For all the show notes and everything, that's the best place to find the most up-to-date information.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye, guys.
Yippee-ki-yay, my friend. Seems like John McClane at that point takes charge. Do you know what I mean?
It's McClane. John McClane is a very different person.
Yes, sorry. John McClane. And at that point, I'm going to cut that out. John McClane. Oh, you're confusing me now. At that point, John McClane takes charge.
You were already confused before I got here on this, I feel.
Yeah.
John McClane. Okay. Say it. Okay. At that point, John McClane.
So at that point, John McClane. John McClane. Okay, shut up.